Meanwhile, many African countries are now seeing a rise in independent media. Stakeholders attribute this in part to the easing of restrictions by governments and increased appreciation of the industry as a viable business by investors. But a recent discussion here in Washington reveals the challenges faced by the growing industry. Media experts that gathered here say they're encouraged by the growth of media in Africa, not owned or controlled by governments. Reed Kramer of the online news source allafrica.com says the radio and newspapers remain the most accessible sources of news and information, but TV, internet and mobile phones are catching on fast.
As democracy strengthens, so does the media. Media and democracy are partners, and media is an important building block for democracy. So we see a lot of areas where media is getting stronger, some places not so much.
However, the owners of these new independent media outlets, says Eric Chinger of the World Bank, are often people who do not always have the right ethics or experience.
There were either journalists who were out of work, journalists who had fallen out of favor with the government, the new political party leaders, or businessmen who saw an opportunity and would care little for the ethics of journalism or for the quality of reporters that they had.
Media experts say lack of professionalism and training can leave independent media open to intimidation, corruption and lawsuits, threatening their survival and credibility. Amadou Mata Ba heads the Africa Media Initiative, which tries to ensure against this.
What African Media Initiative is trying to do is look at the media landscape from a holistic perspective and say, well, what do we need to improve the capacities of the African media?
Ba stresses the importance of supporting media's growth in Africa as it is the cornerstone of the continent's future, he says.
If we do not make sure that independent media in particular has the tools to help in the democratic governance process, in having more open societies, in having more open governments, and in holding our governments to account, then we'll still be in this huge black hole we are in around the governance issues in Africa for a long time.
Rose Mwakitwange of the National Endowment for Democracy in Washington applauds efforts to strengthen African media by broadening the discussion beyond journalism and ethics.
People are paying attention, and for the first time I'm very happy that what I've been looking at and trying to address, which is the business of journalism and media, is now become topical and getting the attention of important strategic players like the World Bank, and that's very promising.
As independent media grows in Africa, experts are divided on whether media should form a partnership with its longtime rival, the government, or remain an aggressive watchdog of it. Mwakitwange, who is also executive chair of the East Africa Business and Media Training Institute in Tanzania, says it should be the latter.
Yes, I still think the media should be the leader in terms of identification of priority and, being able to bring it for debate and even to closure should not be left to the government. Otherwise, who's watching who?
Ba disagrees.
There is absolutely a future in government and independent media talking together, dialogue, because otherwise there would always be this long-lasting conflictual situation where nobody would gain.
Africa is still a long way from attaining that level of maturity, says Chinje, but he adds citizens do benefit from a respectful relationship between government and media.
In the US, media enriches the mind and enriches the debate on the issues that government is facing. That's that kind of complementarity and convergence that we should be seeking in Africa. Right now in Africa, the gap is still extremely wide.
The Center for International Media Systems sponsored the event, which was held at the National Endowment for Democracy. Interesting.
Great story, thank you. And talk about the media, if I may put in my 2 cents. I think indeed the media needs to constantly keep re-evaluating the role it's playing in society. Because sometimes it becomes like an advocacy for freedoms and human rights, but then there comes a time when the roles have to also change, where you really have to educate the citizens about important issues in society, including the role of leaders, isn't it? Yeah. Great job there.